Hey folks, hope you're doing great. My name is Andre. I'm starting this new series called The Right Perspective, where we'll dive into different topics and react into different people or events happening all over the world, where we will discuss manhood, masculinity, culture, self-improvement, different perspectives on relationships between people, business, career, education, you name it. And so I have been stumbled upon this guy, Andrew Tate. Obviously, I think you saw him on the internet too. He is all over the place. As a matter of fact, he's more searched in Google than Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kim Kardashian, of all people. So that's kind of cool to see his exponential and rapid growth. Let's dive in and let's see. This was an excerpt from a stream that gamers had with Andrew. And I would love to just specifically discuss some of the things here and react to give you my perspective. Obviously, if you disagree, please, by all means, good civil discourse in the comment section. I'm very much open to it. So let's dive in.
I think you're a water boy, water boy for patriarchy and capitalism and whatnot, right? And sort of regressive ideas.
Wait, I know we just started and I stopped it, but I just cannot help myself. This dude is supposedly the most famous Fortnite player, and yet he's mocking capitalism. I mean, give me a break. You don't even know what capitalism means. Basically, capitalism is a system of economy that allowed this man to be successful and become maybe a millionaire in gaming. Gaming of all industries is like a joke around the world. You can't become as successful as you can in the US. US is the one who, and some other Western countries, who enabled a lot of people to be successful online without, doing a lot of hard work. And so that's just surprising how people, go to Starbucks, buy coffee, and play video games, all these things, they came from capitalism. And then they say, oh, capitalism is somehow wrong. And somehow blending system of economy with patriarchy is just, that already makes no sense. But let's keep watching.
Is about manhood, and which is why the teenage audience consumes it so much. You got these young boys that are grappling with feelings of powerlessness, and you come in and offer them the ultimate machismo ideas of how to be a man, but you're so off base, bro. It's tragic, really.
So you think that I am inspiring the youth of today, the masculine youth of today, to become men, and you think that's a negative thing? Why?
No, I don't think you're inspiring them to become men, because real men are in touch with their emotions and their vulnerability and don't need to be wielding and taking power. Real men are self-aware.
Now, this is here. Let me break this down for you. And maybe if you're a young kid and you're watching this right now, you think, well, maybe both sides make sense. And hey, here's the thing. First of all, to become a man strong with masculine imperative, to realize your potential, to be ambitious, to be dominant, to be competitive, which you are supposed to be, whether you even want it or not, you naturally have that innate desire, because that's how we designed as men. Now, that's all true, what Andrew Tate has been saying. But the element of what this streamer, this gamer was saying, and by the way, I don't know his name, so just excuse me if somebody knows him, put in a comment. But what he's saying is that men are self-aware. That part is true, but he's confusing the whole idea of being a man with being self-aware. Everybody can achieve self-awareness, as if some level of being aware of the troubles in life, maybe their trauma, self-discovery, the journey of self-discovery. But this idea of vulnerability and emotions is just so confused in modern day and age. People say that just because men can be vulnerable, they supposedly need to be vulnerable. No, nobody in their right mind needs to be vulnerable at any point in life. It just happens to be so that because of different things that happen to you, life is hard, you might feel some vulnerability. And yes, I understand that feeling vulnerable does not inherently mean that you are weak. But showing vulnerability every 5 minutes to the world, then saying that you have to be in touch with your emotions and all these things. Here's the thing about emotions. One of my home countries is Ukraine. I'm making this video and we have a war with Russia at this time. And you go and tell Ukrainian soldiers that you have to be in touch with your emotions. Just go and do that. Let's see how they will reply to you. This is such a biggest bullshit of all things I hear all over the place. Being in touch with your emotions is being self-aware, understanding that that's data, that's something about that something is happening to you, you feel something, but it doesn't mean you have to act on your emotions. Acting on your emotions, that's something else entirely. Being aware of your emotions is a different thing. When you're aware of your emotions, then you know how to react to them. For example, if you feel really, depressed, the best thing you have to do is to go to the gym. Instead of just saying, oh, I feel depressed, and going through into that rabbit hole of sadness and depression and anxiety and low self-esteem. No, you have to actually do everything that is opposite to it so that you can conquer this feeling and so that you can move on. And anyways, I can talk about this for hours, and I just wanted to pause and talk about it a little bit because this is the whole theme of this video, which was taken from the stream, is exactly about this idea that men are not supposed to be masculine. They need to be small, tiny, not ambitious, weak, and vulnerable, in touch with their emotions. Yeah, sure. Then when war will come, let's see how emotional you will be.
And you come in offering them like somebody that they can follow, where you want to be like the savior, the guy, the badass.
If you're a man who's in touch with his strength and his masculine power, why does that mean you're not capable of reflecting inwards and being self-aware? They're not mutually exclusive.
So here's the kicker. There are a lot of things here that I can talk about, but I will skip some of the things because I want to specifically dedicate this video to talk more about masculinity and manhood and things that are related to that. Obviously, there are some other topics they discuss that may be related, maybe not, one way or another. But if you will talk about everything, it's going to take a while. So I want to just jump through some of the parts.
First fallacy. The second fallacy is this whole patriarchy bullshit you're saying that are outdated ideas of masculinity.
Yeah.
The idea of patriarchy is not an outdated idea of masculinity. Perhaps in the West, in a declining empire, as we've already discussed on this stream, in an empire which is in absolute decline, you can have men who sit here and think there's absolutely nothing necessary about masculinity in the modern world, and that you don't need to be strong or brave or any of these things. You can sit around and cry and you're still a man. That is not true in most places on the planet. In most places on the planet, men need to be capable and competent, because if they don't, they do not survive. And I'll tell you something now, sir. I'll tell you something else now. You will sit here and talk right now about the patriarchy and how you can be in touch with your feelings and all this bullshit. The second you're physically assaulted or physically threatened, the first thing you do is you call a toxically masculine police officer to turn up with a weapon to protect you because you cannot protect yourself. You are not against the idea of masculine power. You're not against the idea of men who have masculine imperatives to defense. All you've done is outsource it to someone else to do at the end of a phone call because you're too scared to do it yourself. So you're fucking lying. You're lying.
No, that's absolutely incorrect.
You don't want to do them yourself, and you hope everyone else does them for you, so you can sit around and play fucking video games.
See, the point I posit is there's more than just physicality with men, and you talk about exploitation.
Look, and we will continue, but I just have to call this out too. This freaking thing that there is more than physicality to men. Of course there is more than physicality to men. There is physicality, there is domain of wealth, finances, being intelligent, being wise, making wise decisions in life, being a kind human being, and respecting others, etc. Having a solid ground on your value system, standing for something. I like the quote that Andrew has: if you are tolerable of everything, then you stand for nothing. And in this sense, what I don't understand from this gamer is that he basically makes it on reverse by saying that because it's not all about physicality, then you can be vulnerable and weak. Just makes no sense. The idea that it's not just only about physicality, the idea is that you can be well-rounded individual, well-rounded man who is well-developed across different domains. It's not the excuse to be vulnerable in some other areas or be in touch with your emotions, all this stuff. And by the way, there is a good point about patriarchy, which we'll just watch a little bit more and see where it leads.
absolutely exploit people with your affiliate links. That is exploitation. Like I, as well as Bucky and Claire, total bullshit because they do, and he makes a little money off of exploitation. No influencer is going to take an affiliate link position because it's absolute exploitation.
This is the most stupidest thing I ever heard because this dude obviously used affiliate marketing just like anybody who is trying to make money online. That's all I'm going to say.
Like you practically exist on. Now, the idea of physical strength, like first off, if I get assaulted, I'm probably not going to call the police, okay? Because the police aren't actually very adept at actually solving crimes, right? They don't function very well in the actual solution of crimes. They show up later and just sort of muck up the business.
Correct. Right? So I agree with that. So how would you defend yourself in the effect of an assault? You just lay there and take it?
Well, so it would depend on the assault. I would probably remove myself from the situation, right?
That's not something that's going to be applicable to the scenario we're doing here on the stream. We're not going to pretend you can run away because that just defeats the point of the question.
Well, what are we? Are we here to talk about some hypothetical assault?
No, we're not here to talk about.
99% of Americans never even encounter a violent crime.
Okay, and this is the major point, where he's saying that 99%, I mean, I'm not going to call him out on percentage. I get that he just spit it out. I know we do people sometimes, maybe Jordan Peterson doesn't, he's brilliant, but obviously he did not do his research because to say that 99.9% of Americans are not getting assaulted, at least in their lifetime, that's just stupid. And knowing the crime rates across, different states in the U.S. is just absurd to think that. And so the discussion was just to simulate to have a scenario, to have the idea that you might get assaulted and you won't be able to remove yourself from that situation. And, it's just clear that Andrew have been through experience where he actually was assaulted. And the gamer did not see anything probably outside of his. And hey, I don't want to be judgmental. Maybe he's seen, but the way he talks, the way he communicates makes me think that he never was in an actual altercation. If he was and he had this experience, good for him. Maybe he became stronger after that. But if he didn't, the way he communicates makes me think he has no, real world experience, at least in a context of physicality between men. Now, I know from my experience, I have been assaulted. I'm from Ukraine and I'm Armenian, and we had plenty of street fights. And I haven't been stabbed with a knife or something, but I was on the edge of that, on the edge of the blade, so to speak, in many ways, and definitely wasn't fighting. And this is just absurd to think that you can just imagine, a world with sunshine and rainbows where somebody tries to mug you and then you can remove yourself from a situation. Remove, what do you mean? Like run? Sometimes you can't even run. So yeah, let's keep going, folks.
So this whole machismo thing is like nonsense.
We're not here to talk about hypothetical assaults. We're here to talk about the hypothetical paradigms and ideas around masculinity, because you started this conversation saying that the patriarchy and capitalism and all this bullshit. And I'm sitting here saying to you, live in a very soft society. You're completely correct. 99%
incorrect.
You live in a soft society. If you were the same person in most places on the planet, you would have had your ass beat because you are a weakling. And weaklings are not respected. Let me tell you something, my friend, I'll let you talk afterwards. Never in human history, in any single civilization, in any single empire across the history of Earth, have men been celebrated for their weakness. Ever once. It doesn't matter if you were an Aztec or the Mao dynasty, from China all the way to South America. In every single history book you can read, men who were respected and men who had stories written about them were written about them because they were strong. Weak men have never been respected. Weak men have never mattered. For you to come along and say, I think it's okay to be weak is fine. That is your initiative. That is your decision. But the reason you have done that is because you lack brave. You lack balls.
No,
you lack bravery.
Lack balls. Dude, I have more balls than you'll ever have, boss, here, because you're the one who's sitting here calling emotional strength and emotional vulnerability. You're defining it as weakness. But it's not.
All forms of strength are important. You're saying
it's
that.
Not.
Yes, it is. Physical strength is just as important as emotional strength.
Emotional strength is actually more powerful than physical strength. The ass beating.
You're right, King, but you're emotionally strong enough to just deal with the fact that you got an ass whooping in front of everyone. And that's fine, and everyone should be like you. And that, you know what we call,
I'm not saying everyone
like you are called in most places in the world. People like you are called in most places in the world are victims. We're called prey.
Here's the thing. What happens is Andrew was talking about different aspects of how to be masculine and strong. And then the streamer here, he, took only the physicality part of it, and he's using it to kind of counter debate, to have counter argument against what Andrew is saying, to make it seem like Andrew is all about physicality, while Andrew is clearly not. If you're a multi-millionaire kickboxing champion and you're basically mastering chess, professional chess player, that probably tells you that those are different domains. Like I just said before, it's finances, intelligence, and strength physical, strength emotional. And by the way, if you have physical strength, you definitely have some level of emotional strength, because part of physical strength is going through difficulty of exercise or fighting, whatever the sports is there, where really when you feel pain, it's pretty much your brain tells you that you feel pain. It's not like your bones telling you that. Yeah, you have some nerves and receptors and all that, but it's coming from your brain. So that in itself, in some way, the pain from as a trigger from your mind then triggers the emotions inside you. All the cells in your body and molecules and atoms, wherever they are, act in a certain way. So in some sense, if you are physically strong, you by definition will have some emotional strengths. But yeah, I'm gonna move forward a little bit, because this is just, they're going around and around.
You're a prey.
We're called
and can be their biggest, strongest version of themselves, emotionally, mentally, physically, in every single realm. That is not a negative thing. There's nothing wrong with a man being big and strong. And let me tell you one more thing. We're sitting here talking to professional video game players. You're a professional Fortnite player yourself.
I am.
I don't know how the game works. I've never played the game.
And I was a professional musician and a director. I've done a great many things.
Perfect. Good. And you're obviously a successful, smart individual. You're obviously mentally intelligent, right? I'm not talking
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that just because someone's strong that they don't have to be mentally adept. I'm not saying that somebody doesn't have to be emotionally adept just because they're strong. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that physical strength is also an important thing. But let's look at the video game Fortnite, which I've never played. It might be incorrect. But if you have stats on your character, you're going to try and max out your strength character. You're not going to have a character which is weak. Every single person, if they're given a video game character and said choose what statistics you want, is going to click max strength every single time, and then they're going to go back into the real world and pretend strength doesn't matter. Strength does matter. The difference is in the real world, it's hard to achieve, and because it's hard to obtain, it's the ostrich problem. You don't want to accept that it's hard to do. You don't want to go through the pain to get it, so you want to pretend it doesn't matter. Just because you don't want to go through the bullshit it requires to be a physically dangerous individual does not mean physical dangerous individuals are not respected by society. And I'll tell you one more thing. One more thing.
Right.
If me and you were to stand side by side in front of 100 women, in front of 100 fucking police officers, 100 fucking enemies who want to kill us, whatever it is, they would all choose to fuck with you before they choose, because they'd look at them from my physical stature, want to mess with. That's what you look like, my.
Okay, so they keep talking about the physical element, and I'm just going to emphasize once again, like third time, that the most important point is here to be well-rounded. It's not just about one or the other, but what Andrew is saying right now, to me, it seems that he's trying to make a point that, yeah, you can be great at all other things, but if you're not great at physical strength, you can't even protect yourself or protect somebody you love. And so, yeah, whether you're big or small in terms of, your muscles and all that, it's not so much about that. It's not the bodybuilding context here. It's just the idea that you have to be strong enough to be able to take action. And you have to equip yourself with skills, maybe self-defense, being able to use different weapons and, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm advocating for people to heal and to heal their trauma and not use their trauma like you do and then aim it at select groups of people in order to gain power and money, right, and status so you can walk around with a deity, right?
I think that all men, if you're a good man, you're going to have a traumatic life. That's part of being a man. And I think
I think it's not even a part of being a man. It's a part of being a human being on the planet. Okay. You're going to have a traumatic life.
Sure,
right? But you got to heal the trauma. The trauma doesn't make you unless you heal it. If you don't heal it, you go around, say, dumping it on women, right? By waltzing around talking about how you got to protect women. You got to get a cut of her OnlyFans and all this because you own her.
The things that he's talking about is related to some of the businesses that Andrew had. And let me just break down a few points he was making. So first of all, yes, having trauma not healed is not a good idea. So I agree on that point. But wait a second. So you're saying if I have trauma as a man and I, if I heal myself or I heal my trauma, I put it to action one way or another, then I'm not supposed to protect women as if like women, at least in my life, like my mother, my whatever, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever. I'm like, okay, that's just, one doesn't mean the other. You can do both. You can heal your trauma, you can be strong, and you can, protect women, whether it's physical strength or some other ways. So I don't understand why one point means the other. Like he keeps mixing all things together. Now the whole OnlyFans, I'm just gonna skip this because that's a whole another conversation to have. And
That's nonsense, bro. That's nonsense. That's your trauma speaking.
It depends how you heal the trauma, right? And when I said that being a trauma is part of being a good man, you say, let me answer. Any man who's not had difficulty, any man who's not gone through something that's difficult is not very good at being a man, because when shit hits the fan, people turn to the nearest man in the room and say, what is the solution? Someone just broke in the house, you go to the man. Fucking there's a natural disaster, a hurricane, you go to the man. There's a war, you go to the men. So men who have not been through trauma are not very good at being men because they're not capable of dealing with trauma.
Trauma, right? We just talked about, like, one point was I disagreed with that if you heal trauma, then you somehow not supposed to be strong. It makes no sense. Healing trauma actually makes you stronger, but whatever. And now to Andrew's point, I actually agree, but at the same time disagree in some sense. If you have something in your life, something that puts you to struggle, then you will become stronger, smarter, better in any way, mentally, physically, spiritually. And that's true that that mostly successful men on the planet, I'm talking about well-rounded men, not just in one domain. They had some trauma, and trauma is a big word. I wouldn't necessarily use trauma. Trauma may be something truly tragic. I'm not saying that. It's more like some struggle. They have been poor. They struggled with physicality, maybe. They have been obese, and they had all these problems, and they found themselves, and they fixed all these problems. You name it. Some kind of struggle, being bullied, for example. It's not necessarily trauma. It becomes trauma if you don't work on it, right? But it can be anything really, where there is some struggle. I'm not even talking about suffering. Suffering is even harder. So all these terms, some of these is like extreme words of just struggle. And so what I'm saying is struggling is important, but you can create an environment where you struggle kind of like artificially without having some tragic trauma. Because look, life is ruthless. Life will bring trauma without you even knowing, right? So you don't need to seek it so much. But what you can do is artificially design environment and your lifestyle in a way where you will be able to struggle and improve. What it means, the most basic thing, go to the gym, right? Go to the fighter's gym, go train MMA, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, you name it. Do something competitive. That in itself will bring you some struggle. Try to become extremely wealthy. Obviously everybody has different cards dealt at the beginning of their life, whether you have parents, whether you don't, whether you have inheritance, whether you don't, but you have to play with what you have, and you have to try to build yourself up one way or another. And so the point is, trauma is not so much necessary, although life is difficult and hard. So I guess what I'm trying to say, you don't need to seek trauma. Trauma will find you anyway. But what you can seek is struggle. That way you will become stronger. Here you go. So that was an interesting debate. Very important topics in modern day and age. We are not emphasizing enough the importance of masculinity and strong-willed, emotionally, spiritually, and physically strong men. So I was really excited to sprinkle a little bit of my opinion as well. And so if you like the video, please do not forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I see you in the next one.